Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It is Full Press Radio Live. It is Monday, 27th of February, 2023. And, no football for 2 weeks, unless you're watching the XFL. To be honest, Sean, I haven't really had a chance to watch any. Not that I don't want to. It's just, I need a little bit of a break. Last couple weeks, Sundays have been kind of nice. Got some work done around the house, cleaned up a bit, watched some TV. That type of stuff. Stuff I normally wouldn't do on Sundays when the football season's going on. So, I'm not gonna lie though. I'm still a little bit high. Yeah, you heard me.
Don't say that. Is it legal in Florida? I know
let me clarify. Let me clarify. You didn't let me finish, John. I know that's a juicy soundbite that could probably be taken out of context, but I am still high off of the Linus Olmark goal from the other night. I mean, just goalie goals, they make my heart just feel all warm and just something I just don't feel often. It's just it brings joy to my heart, brings joy to my life, and on top of it, it was an unbelievably beautiful shot, and one that I'm so glad I was able to see as it happened and was able to react.
Yeah, I mean, that's a rarity. That's the only time in Bruins history that's happened, right?
Only 16 times in NHL history.
Yeah, and your guy, Martin Brodeur, had more than one of those, right?
Yeah, there was a regular season and a postseason one, so,
Pretty incredible. Now, I'm going to be the contrarian here because, sometimes you need that. And it was fascinating to see, and it just kind of shows you how good the Bruins are this year. They've got the goalie scoring a goal to clinch a win up in Vancouver. But was it the smartest play? Because if he misses the net and it's icing, now it's still 2-1 and you've got a face-off in your own zone. It's a smarter play to give the puck to a defenseman and try to get the puck past the red line and, kill clock.
It's such a rarity that, and look, I mean, this Bruins team is, I mean, at this point, the only thing we can do right now is wait and see how the season ends to really kind of put the final superlatives on this team. And if things continue to go the way they're going, there's going to be a lot of good ones. But right now, this team just really can't do wrong. And I think he came really close to this in the Winter Classic. And, again, the last time this had happened was Pekka Rinne about, 5-6 years ago, something like that, for Nashville. So, again, this just doesn't happen that often. And I think given the opportunity, I think the opportunity was there. He had enough room, and he decided very quickly when he took the shot. As soon as he gathered in the puck that was dumped in, it was almost like he just snapped right into shooting mode and just delivered it. And look, if you're a goalie, if you're gonna ice the puck or shoot the puck or get the puck down the ice, you have a responsibility to make sure that you can do that, because it's not the easiest thing to do, because obviously, given the I don't know, the physics of the position, when you're a righty, you catch with your left, which means you have to shoot lefty, which is your offhand. So it's not your natural shooting position, not to mention the blocker and then the glove and not your real hand. There's a lot of things that go into it. So yeah, there is some risk, John. I mean, sure. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was so minimal given what could happen. And in reality, worst case scenario, if it was icing, I can't remember exactly who was on the ice, but very likely you'd probably have Bergeron or Krejci or one of those guys to take a face off in their own zone. And I'd put a lot of money on the fact that they'd probably follow through.
Yeah, I mean, I sound like the old guy trying to, rain on the parade, but I was just thinking of that. But
yeah, stop ruining my fun, John. Jeez.
I know. It's the best day of the year so far for you. So, I'm sorry I'm, making it so bad. But the way he pounced on it too, right? Like he made his mind up before the puck was on his stick, which is, I think, what you have to do, right? It's instinctual. It's like the shortstop that knows, okay, if the ball's hitting the hole, I'm going to third base. I'm not going to go to second base.
It was the classic. That field goal would have been good from 70 yards. I mean, just the way he got into perfect. It, and it was Yeah,
I mean, that thing was. It wasn't like it wasn't like curling. I mean, the thing was really was shot. I mean, that's not quite Zdeno Chara, but it was pretty. It's
a beautiful wrist shot
and with some force. Yeah, it was good. So good for him. But no, I mean, that's how good they are. They're 45-8-5, Ian.
Yeah.
That doesn't even seem to compute. Carolina's having an incredible year, right?
Yep.
And they're 9 points behind the Bruins. They've got 86 points, and they've been, in a normal year, Carolina's the best team in hockey. This Bruins team is, up among the greatest of all times in terms of regular season records. Now, obviously, we've got to see what happens in April, May, and hopefully June. But were they plus 97 in goals? I mean, that's insane.
The difference between them and Carolina, or I'm sorry, New Jersey, who I believe is, well, at least the last I checked yesterday, they were the second best team. The difference between them and New Jersey, I think, was plus 44 when I checked, and that would be good for fifth best in the league. Just the difference, which again, it's absurd, and it kind of shows you how. We joke that, I mean, they're getting so much depth scoring that goaltenders are scoring. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. I mean, as a Bruins fan, as someone who's been watching this team since, I could walk, the last few years have been just just painstaking to watch, because you knew this team was very top heavy, but they just couldn't score from the bottom four. Now they're getting it from everywhere. Everywhere they score, they don't let up points. They play great team defense. I mean, there's everything about this team.
Totally.
Checks. I don't want to say it, but they really just don't have a weakness right now.
No. And then after the trade, obviously they added some depth there, right?
Depth and physicality.
And physicality, which is, I think, the two things they need. Because if you play Carolina in the conference finals, that's what Carolina does, right? They play very heavy, and they had a top 7-game series a year ago. Let's get the skates on Jim Montgomery, get him a stick, and see if he can score too. What the hell? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, look, so far, I mean, again, this Bruins team is going to walk away with a lot of hardware. Regular season hardware for sure. I mean, again, Linus Ullmark was pretty much a shoe-in for the Vezina. I think, not that it really means anything from the grand scheme of things, but being the second quickest to 30 wins in the fewest games behind Tiny Thompson, a former Bruin goalie from back in your day, right? Way back when?
Oh, yeah, way back then, yeah.
Okay.
80 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I mean, between that, the first goalie to 30 wins this season, obviously scoring the goal adds into it. First in goals against average. I mean, again, there's going to be a lot of hardware. Jim Montgomery is going to be the coach of the year. They're going to win the President's Trophy. So there's a lot of these things that are going to be a factor or be a celebration at the end of the season. But, again, at the end of the day, you want to see what this team does in the postseason. And unlike in years past, and even in 2019, when they did go to the final, they certainly weren't as good as they are now. I mean, not even close. And they were a really good team in 2019. Now, again, the same old problem occurred where they got to the final, or even kind of before they got to the final, but they did get to the finals. And, against St. Louis, they were just overpowered, especially in Game 7. And that's something that you just don't see happening with this team anymore. Certainly not this season. And to be able to add a guy like Garnet Hathaway, who led the Washington Capitals in hits, who can play bottom 6 minutes, and in a pinch sometimes middle 6 minutes. So that's a great trade for them. Dmitry Orlov, another guy who could essentially be a top 4 defenseman on this team, when you already have guys like Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm and Brandon Carlo, and it's an impressive team. It's an incredible team to watch, and like I said, the goalie goal was just it was. Because really, John, if you think about it, if you watch the game, and I was watching the game, I had the Celtics hat on in the background, but they didn't really play a great second and third period. They had a really strong first period. They didn't play a great second and third period. And I'm not going to say that they were holding on to that win or they just barely held on to that. I mean, they're a very good team. And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes you just, we know we're good. We'll do it, the bare minimum, whatever. And that's kind of what the feeling I got from them. So, the goal is kind of important from the sense that, you needed really that insurance goal to make sure you get your 6th win of the season. You don't really want to go to overtime, out in the West. You really want to come home thinking, we had a big victory right there. And that's what they did. And that's what that goal meant. And again, it's just kind of icing on the cake for what this regular season has been for the Bruins, who right now are just, getting prepared for the playoffs and what they can do in the postseason.
And you look at this, the impressive part so far with the Bruins is they can win in any fashion. Like the other night, maybe they didn't play their best game. It was 2-1. Allmark scores 3-1 final. The first game of the 4-game road trip was 6-5 over Seattle, and 6 different players scored goals. You tied it late, and then you won it late. So just impressive ways that they can win, because again, I think it's so important that you now have Pasternak on the same line with Krejci. I think they've worked so well together. So now you have 2 elite lines, right? You move DeBrusque up to the first line. He fit in seamlessly with Bergeron and Marchand. I think I could fit in seamlessly with those 2 guys because they're so darn good. And then you've got a former Hart Trophy winner on your third line and Charlie Coyle at center. That's a good third line. So the depth is there, the versatility, and this trade to me is a home run to add 2 players that are going to give you that physicality. And by the way, Garnett Hathaway, is that one of the coolest names you've ever heard? It's almost as cool as your name. You have one of the coolest names of any friends I have. I really am impressed with that because, Italian American, we kind of, we have the long names with the vowel at the end, but you've got a cool name, and Garnett Hathaway. That sounds like an aristocrat to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm getting this weird mix of Kevin Garnett and Anne Hathaway. I don't know. It's weird, Thinking about the 2007 NBA Finals and Interstellar. I don't know.
Brokeback Mountain or whatever. Yeah.
But yeah, this Bruins team. Look, we're still a week away from the trade deadline too. So unlike in years past, this wasn't a desperation move. They were proactive. And I'm not going to say that they're going to do anything more. But the options are there for them. I'm glad they got rid of the draft picks because who the hell cares at this point? You want to win now, and this is the type of move that you can win now with. So, but the other interesting thing that same night, John, unfortunately I didn't get to see this live because I was paying attention to the Bruins game and everything that was going on there. But Jason Tatum, big shot, end of the game, win the game against the 76ers, who even look, we talk about, when we do talk about the NBA and we talk about the East, it's really the Celtics, the Bucks, and everyone else. And I saw someone tweet this today that you can really never count on any other team to beat the Bucks other than the Celtics. And that's kind of, even without Giannis, Giannis is a little banged up or whatever. They're clearly the 2 best teams in the East, right?
I would say so. I mean, I'm about 90% there. I'm still holding out for the Cavaliers, who I picked to win the East before the season, so I'll stick with it. They're really good. I mean, Donovan Mitchell is good as it gets. Darius Garland's outstanding. Mobley and Jared Allen are too big. They don't have really accomplished wings, which the league is loaded with wings. I don't know why they didn't go out and get one at the trade deadline. Maybe they'll get one in the buyout market, but I would say that they're the 3rd best team in the East, along with Philadelphia. Philadelphia just can't beat the Celtics.
Yeah.
They really can't. They had a 15-point lead on Saturday night, and then they came back, took the lead, and they just can't get it done. And look, Joel Embiid is phenomenal. I mean, he nearly tied the game up with a 75-foot shot that looked like Aaron Rodgers rolling left and throwing right. I mean, that was a thing of beauty. He's sensational. And just look at the Celtics, Ian. They've won a lot of games this year where Tatum's been off. He was off Saturday night. He didn't really have a great game, but he hit the big shot when he needed to. He ended up with 18 points. He had 15 before he hit that game-winning 3, but he still makes that big shot. And that's when you see a great player have an off night but hit the big shot when necessary. They can win when he has an off night because they're so deep.
Oh, and a guy like Jaylen Brown.
Oh, I mean, how's that as your number 2 guy or your 1A? So whatever. That's to me. Let's take LeBron and Anthony Davis out of the equation because Anthony Davis is never healthy. Tatum and Brown right now is the best duo in the league. They have the best record. They're essentially the same age. They're good on both ends of the court. They're both good for 40 on any given night.
And they complement each other very well.
They're starting to complement each other. Exactly. That's the big thing. My only qualm with them is the turnovers. That's an issue for both guys. And I think there's some ways that at the end of certain games or even during the middle of a game, I'd like to see a 5-man unit out there, Tatum and Brown, with Marcus Smart, Derek White, and Malcolm Brogdon. Now, that's a small lineup. Tatum is your biggest guy in that situation. But if you're not playing Giannis or Embiid, try it out. I just want to see what that looks like because now you take a lot of pressure off of Brown and Tatum because you've got other ball handlers out there. That would be their best offensive unit. I just want to see what it looks like for 4 or 6 minutes at a time just to see how that is because that could be a closing lineup against certain teams in the postseason that don't have bigs.
And it would be incredibly hard to defend for a lot of teams. I mean, when you think, especially if you're getting all those guys that just happen, they don't even have to be like on fire, but like, like Derek White, if he's going to hit a few big threes, and then all of a sudden you have Tatum and Brown, and it makes your head spin trying to guard it. But again, obviously, that is only in certain situations. You're not going to do that against the 76ers and Embiid and Giannis because, well,
no.
it would be kind of comical to see like Derek White try to
banging around with Joel Embiid's in the low post at 300 pounds and all that incredible ability. So it's amazing. And again, let's jinx ourselves, so why not? But again, maybe the double title, right? The Celtics and Bruins. And I'm doing a lot of research this morning. It's never happened. There's been a couple of times it's been close, including Boston in 1974, which I was 11 years old at the time, so I was a big fan of both the Bruins and the Celtics. The Celtics lost. The Celtics beat the Bucks in 7 games. The Bruins lost to the Flyers in 6. And before those series started, Ian, I was like so sure that the Bruins were going to beat the Flyers because the Flyers had never won in Boston Garden in their 7-year history at that time, and the Bruins were loaded with Orr and Esposito. I mean, they looked like they were going to roll in that series. The Celtics-Bucks series looked really tough because Milwaukee had Kareem, but the Celtics won in 7. The Bruins lost in 6. And then in 1994, you had the Rangers and the Knicks. The Rangers won in 7 over Vancouver, and the Knicks lost in 7 to Houston. So, if you could win both of these titles in June, I mean, what a cherry on top of the Sunday that would be for this ridiculous run that's produced 12 titles.
Yeah, no, and look, maybe that's getting a little too ahead of ourselves. I think because this is the crazy thing. As great as Celtics season has been, it is. They are like relative to the Patriots, relative to the Bruins, not relative to the Patriots, relative to the Bruins. They're a very flawed team if you think about it. You know what I mean? Like everything that they do well is great, and there's a reason why they're arguably the best team in the league. Obviously, number 1 seed in the East right now, and very much a title favorite, and I'm not denying any of that. And I think there's a very good chance that, again, you talk about how great the 76ers are. Well, the problem is if they can't get through the Celtics, well, guess what? They ain't doing anything because they're always going to have to, at some point, go through the Celtics, and it's just not going to work. So, really, the odds of the Celtics getting back to the NBA Finals are fairly high. Certainly when you think of, well, even with a healthy Giannis, you still like this matchup as the Celtics as the favorite. So, like, it isn't contingent on, well, we hope Giannis is a little banged up, or maybe they're not 100%. The Celtics might be able to eke this one out. It's like, no. If all things are equal, the Celtics are a better team. So, you really have to like their chances. And then you talk about the Bruins, and it's like, again, I've watched sports long enough to know never to get ahead of yourself. And there's been other times where, you sit there and you see what's on the wall. But we're looking at a team that we kind of talked about it, I believe, or maybe I brought it up on the Big Bad Bruins. I do so many shows, Sean. I kind of forget sometimes. But, this is a team that could, it takes 16 wins to win the Stanley Cup. This team could go 16-5. And that would be below their current pace, by the way, what they're doing over essentially a 21-game span on average. So that would be one of the best postseason runs of all time. Again, right up there with some of the other great runs. And there have been many. I'm not saying that would be like a unique thing, but certainly unique in modern history, last 10 years or so. And again, I'd have to kind of go back and double check. I know that the Lightning had a really good run a couple of years ago, so it might match something like that. Either way, it's not easy to do. We're talking about a team that's essentially gonna just kind of cruise through. I mean, from start to finish. And sometimes we see this, John. Sometimes we see it from start to finish. And look, the Red Sox had a run like this, where they were just from the beginning of the season to the very last game of the World Series, they were just balls to the wall, so to speak, just run the table. Maybe the Bruins are that. And look, right now, there's nothing to make me think that they're not, So, look, again.
Is it tough in hockey, though? Isn't it tough in hockey because of the certain matchups?
Sure.
I mean, look,
sure.
If you get to the second round, you're playing either Toronto or Tampa Bay. And look, Toronto hasn't won a series in 20 years, so no matter how many moves they make, how fearful of them are you? And the Bruins have done a really good job against Tampa the last couple of years. I know Tampa's, the last three
things have
seasons
shifted a little bit,
but yeah, and again with this depth, that's the key. I think that was always the difference, right? Where Tampa was just deeper than the Bruins, so that first line had so much pressure on it. Now that you have three lines, you can roll out there and four solid defensemen. Heck, you can roll out two goalies if you need to.
The Bruins made it to the finals with 1.5 lines, essentially, a few years ago.
Yep.
Now they have 4. Plus Ullmark, obviously. Now you have to account for Ullmark back there when he handles the puck, But no, look, the reality of it is, though, you name like in years past, yes, running into Tampa it didn't matter how good you were. They were deeper, they were more physical, and that's ultimately is what's going to pay off in any playoff series in hockey. And right now, there's no team that's deeper than the Boston Bruins. Not only, and again, you can argue, obviously there are teams that Edmonton has scored more goals than them. I mean, Bruins are second right now in goals a game. So, but no team not only has the offense, but also the defense. And that's the biggest thing. Like some teams are great offensively. The Devils are really good offensively. They're pretty good defensively. The Bruins are great on both sides of the puck. So, yeah, it's pretty incredible to watch. Obviously, at this point, we're just kind of, at this point, you just need to get to the playoffs, and that's really where we're gonna form the ultimate label for this team and for this season. And hopefully, John, for Boston fans at least, they're gonna be doing this twice in about 3 days in terms of maybe the Celtics and the Bruins wrapping up a final victory. That would be pretty sweet. So
you don't want to do let's like really be arrogant here and start planning the parades and just have one massive parade for both teams.
That would be a
giant middle finger to the rest of the country, right? So the Red Sox team you referenced, 2018, 108-54. They win 11-3 in the postseason. They beat like a bunch of good teams. They beat the Yankees, the Astros, the Dodgers. That was dominant. I mean, you could make a case the 12 championship teams in Boston over the last 20-plus years that Red Sox team might have been the most dominant of them all. I mean, the 07 Patriots, yes, but they didn't win the title.
I'd say 04 Patriots were
04 Patriots
the most dominant team of any one of those 12
I'll
championship
go along with you on
teams.
that. The Celtics team in 08, I mean, they needed 2 7-game series. They were really good, but, they
needed
dominant.
that 7-game series against the Hawks. That was, whew.
Yeah.
Think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. LeBron puts up 45 in Game 7 at the Garden. And, of course, the next day Skip Bayless is talking about some, shot he missed in the second quarter that cost them the game, apparently. Yeah. But, but that's pretty interesting. And the team I always reference is the two teams I always reference because it's from my childhood. The 70-71 Bruins were the best Bruins team ever, without question. They didn't win the Cup. They lost in the first round to the Canadians. They just were loaded. And then the 76-77 Canadians, I maintain, is the best team I've ever seen in any sport. They went 68-12, 132 points in an 80-game schedule. That's back when, after 60 minutes, a tie is a tie. So there were no overtimes. They outscored their opponents by, I think, close to 200 goals. I mean, that's insane. They had 10 Hall of Famers. They had won the Cup the year before. They won it the following year. That's the measuring stick, is that Canadian team. I don't think you'll ever see anything quite like that ever again. But yeah, this is every time I look, I'm just, okay, they're due for some sort of slump here. And they had a little bump in the road there for a few games, and then they just snapped out of it. And
won 6 in a row so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, and I keep, me with math, I love doing math, and it's like 45-8 with 5 overtime. That's like insane.
Their slump was they were 1-3-1.
Right.
And now they've won 6 in a row. And look, I mean, one of their losses, I think, you're getting close to the All-Star break and everything like that. But, what do? Well, who's the second best home team in the league right now? It's Toronto. So they go up to Toronto, beat the bricks off Toronto. I was there, by the way. I was there. No, not a coincidence. Right. Not a coincidence that they snapped out of the streak. And that started this run now. So now, they've won 6 in a row. You mentioned Carolina. I mean, as great as Carolina's been, I mean, there's a 9-point difference between the two. And normally, like you said, we'd be talking about Carolina as the best team in the league. So it's an interesting thing or dynamic with this team. It's like, so far they've really given no indication that there's a weakness, there's a fatal flaw in this team. They're deep. They can win finesse. They can win physical. They can win with maybe a mediocre effort up front and a better defensive effort. They can win in so many different ways. And at this point, I just don't think that they're intimidated by anyone. I mean, they go out there and know that they can beat anyone. And there's no, oh my God, it's the Lightning. Oh my God, it's the Hurricanes. Or, oh my God, it's this, that, or the other. No, it's, okay, let's go out and do what we have to do. And what they do is they beat the Brickshop team. So it's a pretty good situation for Boston heading forward. Certainly with the Bruins and obviously with the Celtics as well. So, like you said, John, hopefully we're going to get a June celebration that will top them all. So
that sounds good to me.
I like it.
I like celebrations.
So I do want to shift gears real quick before we wrap the show up. And we never talk about football on the show. I know.
Not often, no. I haven't heard much of it.
It's always hockey and basketball. That's all we do. But no. The Bears. Sorry, the Bears. The Bears. Yep. I was completely blanked on that. Bears hold the number 1 overall pick right now. And by the way, real quick, Canadians 60, 8, 12. They had 12 ties that season.
I said that. Yeah.
So, I'm saying, okay. You know what? I just.
You don't listen to me.
No, I did listen. I did listen to you, but I realized what happened. I heard when you said 60 and 8, I thought you said 68. As in 60
12, yeah.
Yeah, so that threw me off because I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that I know that they have the points record. And right now the Bruins are on pace to break the points record. I'll have to check their wins pace, but I think they're certainly still right at 60. I don't know if they're going to break the 62 mark one, but we'll see. Anyways, going back to Chicago after that little miscommunication there. Going back to Chicago, they hold the number 1 overall pick, obviously, or at least we assume that they have a quarterback in Justin Fields, and I think you'd really have to twist yourself in a pretzel to excuse me. To convince yourself that Justin Fields is at the very least the right option for next season for Chicago. So the reports are that perhaps that number 1 overall pick is up for grabs, and that really, I should have looked this up before, but I feel like we haven't seen the number 1 overall pick get traded in several seasons, if not maybe more than a decade. So. Am I wrong? Because the only thing that's popping into my head right now is Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers, and that wasn't even a traditional swap of the number 1 overall pick. It was, he got selected and then traded. Yeah. So
that they took Eli, the Chargers, and then they traded him. Yeah. So I'm just trying to think of the NFL, because normally there's someone out there that's like, okay, we got to get this guy, especially if it's a franchise quarterback, and C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. I wouldn't call them both can't miss prospects. I think they're really good, but I wouldn't call them can't miss prospects. And Chicago has their quarterback, I hope. I'm in agreement with you. I like Justin Fields. Get him some coaching, maybe get him a wide receiver, something the Bears have never had. And I think you'll see him grow as a quarterback. We saw that with Josh Allen in his 3rd year. We saw that with Jalen Hurts in his 3rd year. So give him a chance. This would be interesting to see what happens. Someone who really wants one of those 2 quarterbacks can move up a couple of spots, and the Bears should trade that pick if they're not going to take a quarterback and get extra draft capital, which they need.
I'm looking at it right now. So obviously San Diego traded the number 1 overall pick to Atlanta in 2001.
Yes, that's right, from
Michael Vick. And maybe I'm just completely misremembering how this whole situation happened, but it also says in 2016, Tennessee traded that number 1 overall pick to Los Angeles. Now,
for Jared Goff.
Yeah, right. Was it? Yeah, I guess so. Shoot.
For a lot. Yeah, for a lot.
Yeah, that's right. But, again, very, very rare that happens. Those are the last two instances prior to 1997. So, again, this just doesn't happen that often. So I'd be surprised if it does ultimately come to that. But in most situations, those teams picking number one overall, at the very least, have some sort of quarterback questions. And again, Justin Fields isn't perfect. No one knows exactly, what he's going to be. But I think the Bears are comfortable enough moving forward with him as their quarterback to not have to consider a quarterback at number one. And really, John, isn't that the only position that is really valuable at like a top 1, 2, or 3 pick?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not a running back. It used to be years ago, but not anymore. I mean, even if as an offensive lineman, I mean, didn't Jake Long go number one for Miami in 2008? Yeah. I mean, that's not what you do anymore. I mean, they're valuable. Wide receivers, I remember Keyshawn Johnson was first overall. I mean, no, it's got to be a quarterback. It's got to be a franchise quarterback that you feel really good about. And it's got to be like a Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck.
And even then, John that's Elway, no sure thing. Look at the Jets right now.
Yeah, Zach Wilson, exactly. They had the third pick, too. They made trades to move up to number 3 to get Sam Darnold, and that didn't work out.
Yeah, and so to me, if I'm the Bears, I'm probably looking to trade that number one overall pick because, it's definitely overvalued by other teams and certainly other, again, I think it's certainly overvalued in the Twitterverse, whatever you want to call it. I almost said Twittersphere, and I don't know, just stumbled over my words. I decided to change it up midway through speaking, which whatever. Anyways,
make your own words up.
Yeah, I do that. I do that. I try. Remember that word I made up a few months ago, and now I can't remember what it was. You even complimented it. I don't know. I'll have to figure that one out. What was that?
Go through the archive.
Yeah, I'll start listening every hour of every show.
Day doing that.
Yeah. Anyway, so
like George trying to get that zipper fixed on his jacket. Remember, like he couldn't stop with it.
Oh, that drives me nuts whenever I get a zipper stuck like that. I'm just like terrible. George. I couldn't live.
Terrible.
I couldn't settle down. I couldn't relax, or I couldn't do anything until it got fixed. But so I think the Bears would likely, trade that or should probably move that. The question is, what team do you think might bite? Because I mean, we know NFL number one overall picks. You're gonna have to give up quite a haul to move up to number one, even if you're just a few spots back. So I'm trying to think of well, what team might do it? Well, maybe the Colts.
Could be the Colts. Could be Carolina, Atlanta. Yeah. Those are teams that come to mind, especially in that division.
Yeah,
I mean, in both Souths, if you can get a franchise quarterback, you can contend for years to come in the AFC South and NFC South. So those would be three teams that I would think would be very interested in moving up to get one of those two quarterbacks or both.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if you're again, the Colts are another team that just haven't, they thought they found the quarterback, and they very well could have if Andrew Luck continued to play, but sadly that was not the case. But they've been in quarterback purgatory since really the season Peyton Manning was injured, because I'm not even going to count the Andrew Luck years, because it's almost just like false hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you thought you were in a good spot, but the reality of it was you weren't. So, this is a team that's desperate. They have a new coach. They have the ability to go in and potentially move up to that number one pick. But again, I mean, all these situations, all these teams that are going to be willing to do that, they got a lot of work to do. The Colts aren't, a young quarterback away from contending. Neither are the Titans or any of the other teams that were mentioned. Obviously we don't think the Jets are going to do that, just because, again, I mean, they're more focused on the veteran quarterback route. Atlanta is interesting because they've been very, very closely tied with Lamar Jackson, or at least mentioned when it comes to his possible availability. We'll have, I think, a little bit more clarity on that once we kind of figure out what the Ravens are doing, what tag they're going to put on him, if any. I imagine he is going to get tagged, but it all depends on which tag they use and whether or not Atlanta could potentially swing a deal and all that. So, yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it get traded. I like to see this draft get mixed up a little bit because, look, quite frankly, I think Chicago would be foolish to try to reset their quarterback situation, and that's really all you'd use that number 1 overall pick for. Because, let's face it, I don't think there's a can't miss offensive line stud, surefire Hall of Fame guy. And look, go back to 2020. I mean, Tristan Wirfs was taken 14th overall, and he was by far the best offensive lineman, not only in that draft, but one of the best offensive linemen in the league. So those top overall picks are really, I think, overvalued. And I think you can certainly take advantage of that if you're the Bears. So sign me up.
Unless Anthony Munoz is coming out, then you can get someone, with 5, 6, 7. Quentin Nelson went 5th, I believe, and he's one of the best guys in the league. So exactly.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I did. I'm sorry, John. I mentioned before we got on the air that we're going to talk about LeBron in a little bit. So, but we couldn't.
Yeah, we can save that for another day.
Yeah, we ran out of time. So, we'll save it. Maybe they'll get their win streak up to 4 or 5 games, and then we can we could talk about them knocking on the door of the second wild card spot. So until then, we're gonna have to say goodbye. We will be back tomorrow tentatively. I'm due to get a wisdom tooth out today. Yes, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I might have to get a little bit different high for that. And by that I mean I'm going to watch the Omar goal over and over and over again and kind of high overdose myself. That's what I'm saying, folks. Don't listen to me.
With a big smile on your face, and you'll be drooling.
Yeah, exactly. So, apparently someone really wants to talk to me. Nope. Okay, they're gone. Anyways, we will possibly be back tomorrow. No, they're still here. We will possibly be back tomorrow. All depends on how my mouth feels, and perhaps maybe it'll be best for everyone if I do not speak. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So, anyways, have a great day. Enjoy your Monday, and we will possibly talk to you tomorrow.